Dear student, today we are going to discuss on cascading style sheets. The cascading style sheet is a markup language used in the web document for presentation purpose. The primary intention of CSS was to separate out the web content from the web presentation. Various elements such as text, font, and color are used in CSS for presentation purpose. Thus, CSS specification can be applied to bring the styles in the web document. Here we see in the outlines of our topic what is CSS, importance of CSS, basic syntax and structure of CSS, class and ID used in CSS, types of CSS, multiple sector and multi-level sector in CSS, background and font and text we are using in CSS. As we know that HTML describes the structure of a web page. Cascading style sheets, referred to as a CSS, is a simple design language intended to simplify the process of making web pages presentable. CSS defines the layout of HTML documents. For example, CSS covers fonts, colors, margins, lines, height, width, background images, advanced positions, and many other things. Importance and needs for CSS. By combining CSS with the HTML document, considerable amount of flexibility into the content submission can be achieved. Similarly, separating out the style from actual contents help in managing large-scale complex sites. Thus, CSS facilitates publication of content in multiple presentation formats. If CSS used effectively, then global style sheet can be applied to a web document. This helps in maintaining the consistency in the web document. If a small change need to be done in style of web content, then CSS makes it more convenient. This all considers as an advantages of CSS. Improve website presentation. External CSS makes update easier and smoother, and external CSS help web pages load faster. If you are consider the disadvantage of CSS, then it is actually depending on the browser how many actually functionality of CSS which is implemented in browser using by user. CSS rule has two main parts. A selector can be HTML element, ID or any class, and one or more declarations, and each declaration consists of a property and a value. Property is a style attribute you want to change. Each property has a specific value. Like here we have seen that selector h1, that is the HTML element, and declaration 1 in which color is properties which has a value blue, and declaration 2 font size is a property and the 12 pixel is value. The class sector. The class sector is used to specify a style for a group of elements. The class sector uses the HTML class attribute and is defined with a dot in CSS. Here we see the example of a class CSS dot my class. It is a selector, color is the property and blue is the value. Here we are using class selector in HTML. h1 class is equal to my class. The properties of color blue, which is implied to h1 class, which has the value my class, and we can use the class in a group of element. Here we see in the example h1, we are actually using my class in multiple times an HTML file. We can say there is three levels of cascading style sheet, or three ways of writing a style sheet: inline style sheet, document level style sheet, or external level style sheet. And as an priorities point of view, inline style sheet has the highest priority, as in compare of external and internal style sheet. Inline style sheet. It is possible to place CSS right in your HTML code, and this method to CSS usage is referred to as inline CSS. Inline CSS has the highest priority out of external and internal CSS. This means that you can override the style that are defined in external or internal by using inline CSS. If you want to add a style inside an HTML element, all you have to do is specify the desired CSS properties with the style HTML attribute. Here we see the example of inline style. P element, which is actually contain the style attribute, with the background has the value blue and color is white. Internal style sheet. This type of CSS is only for single web page. When using the internal CSS, we must add a new tag style inside the head. It is the best way to use the CSS in head section. The HTML code below contains an example of internal style sheet. See the example. Here we create the internal style sheet in head section of HTML page. The style type is equal to text CSS and has P selector, color attribute and red value, which is applied to P element which is used in HTML page. External style sheet. When using CSS, it is preferable to keep the CSS separate from your HTML. It has a lot of advantages. Placing CSS in a separate file allows the web designer to completely differentiate between the content of HTML and design of CSS. External CSS is a file that contains only CSS code and is saved with .css file extension. This CSS file is then referenced in your HTML using the link instead of style. See the example of external CSS. Here we see the external CSS file test.css, which is contain the ID para1 with his value and p element with his style sheet. See the example demo.html. Here we link the test.css in demo.html. Using the link tag, we are provide the reference using the href attribute is equal to provide the path of our external CSS file. Here we see the output of demo.html, which is implies the properties of test.css into demo.html. Advantages of external style sheet. It keeps your website design and content separate. It's much easier to reuse your CSS code if you have it in a separate file instead of typing the same CSS code on every web page. You have simply many pages refer to a single CSS file with a link tag. You can make drastic changes to your web pages with just a few changes in a single CSS file. Assign multiple classes. We can apply a different class to the same HTML element by giving a space separated class names in the class attribute. Here see the example of test.css in which class 1 with its values and class 2 with its style sheet. See the example demo.html in which we are applying both class properties into single HTML element h1. See the output. We are achieving both multiple classes of CSS. Here we see the background property of CSS in which we can achieve background color, background image repeat, fixed background image or background image positioning. It is the properties background dash color, background dash image, background dash repeat, background dash attachment, background dash position. Background color. The background color property specify the background color of an element. The background color of a page is defined in the body sector. Below is the example. See here we are actually provide the properties background color with the value red. See the example of background image. Here the images is actually going on the repeated mode. So multiple times the image is actually display on our browser. Background image repeat. You can have a background image repeat vertically, y-axis horizontally, x-axis in both direction or in neither direction. See the CSS, test.css, background dash repeat as value no repeat, background dash repeat as repeat y axis, background dash repeat, repeat has x-axis. See the output, background with no repeat, background repeat with the repeat x. The image is actually repeated in the horizontally way. Background repeat with repeat y-axis. The image is actually repeat in the vertical way. And the value is no repeat. Image is actually display on a single time with no repeat properties. CSS font. CSS font properties define the font family, boldness, size, and the style of a text. See the property name. For font color, color, font family, font dash size, font dash style, and font dash weight. Font color, set the text color for different element. See the example. Here the H4 element contain the property color as value red. Font family. The font family of a text is set with the font family properties. Here see the example. Font dash family has sans serif values. A font size property set the size of text. Font dash size, we can write the value is in percentage, in pixel, or with the value large or small. Font style. The font style property is mostly used to specify italic text. See the example. Font dash style property as value italic. Font weight. The font weight property sets how thick or thin characters and text should be displayed. Here we see the example with the different values of font dash weight. Text properties. CSS font covers most of the traditional ways to format your text. CSS text allow you to control the spacing, decoration, and alignment of your text. Text transform. The text transform property is used to specify uppercase and lowercase letters in a text. White space. White space attributes allow you to prevent text from wrapping until you place a break bear into your text. Word spacing. With the CSS attribute word spacing, you are able to specify the exact value of spacing between your words. Word spacing should be defined with exact values. See the example of text transform. Text transform property has different values. Capitalize, uppercase, and lowercase. White space property has a value no wrap for white space attribute. And the word spacing, by the space between the word. Here we are using the word spacing attribute with the value 10 pixel. Text decoration. The decoration properties is used to set or remove the decoration from the text. The text decoration property is mostly used to remove underline from links for design purpose. See the example. Text decoration property with the different value. Line through, overline, underline and none. Text align. Text align property is used to set the horizontal alignment of a text. See the example. Text align with the different values. Right, left, center, justify. Letter spacing. With the CSS attribute letter spacing, you are able to specify the exact value of the spacing between your letters. Letter spacing should be defined with the exact value. See the example, letter spacing here with the 3 pixel values. Line height. The line height attribute will set the height of the line in a page. See the example, line height has 10 pixel values.